Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into Basque country today.
Right.
Well, linguistically speaking, of course.
Sure.
You listeners have sent in a ton of research on the Basque language.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this stuff is fascinating.
It really is.
We're talking about Europe's only surviving language, isolate.
Yeah.
A true linguistic anomaly.
Like, imagine a language so old it predates the arrival of Indo-European languages to Europe.
Wow.
Oh.
That's Basque.
So are we even talking about like a different branch in the language family tree, or?
It's a completely different tree altogether.
Whoa.
It's like, while most European languages trace their ancestry back to a common ancestor,
Right.
Proto-Indo-European, Basque stands alone. It's like a linguistic island.
So interesting.
A testament to the tapestry of languages that once painted the European landscape.
That really puts things in perspective when you put it like that.
Yeah.
This linguistic time capsule idea, though, I'm really intrigued.
Right.
The sources mention something about Basque words for tools.
Potentially holding clues to its age.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the Basque words for tools like knife axe and hoe
Okay.
have a fascinating origin.
Okay.
Linguists believe they could be derived from the word for stone. Really consider this. What if these words were coined when tools were predominantly made of stone?
That's incredible. So we're like piecing together a puzzle from thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
You mentioned linguistic detective work. What are the challenges of tracing word origins back that far?
The challenge is that language changes.
Right.
Language is a living and evolving entity,
Right.
meaning shift.
Yeah.
Words morph, and influences from other languages leave their mark.
So interesting.
So trying to trace any word back to the Stone Age is a monumental task,
Yeah.
fraught with complexities. It's kind of like trying to find a single grain of sand on a beach.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But even with its ancient roots, we're talking about a language that's alive and kicking in the present day. It's not just a relic of the past.
It's not just a relic of the past. That's what makes Basque even more extraordinary.
Okay.
It's a language that has not only survived, but thrived against incredible odds.
Wow.
We're talking about a history intertwined with empires' conquests,
Wow.
and even attempts to silence it completely.
Okay, now that's a story I want to hear more about.
Yeah.
How did a language as unique and ancient as Basque weather the storms of history and emerge on the other side?
So imagine looking at a map of Europe centuries ago, right?
Okay.
The area where Basque was spoken was much more extensive than it is today.
Really?
Oh yeah, we're talking regions that are now considered French or Spanish-speaking territory.
Wow. So how did Basque go from holding such a prominent place to becoming so geographically concentrated?
Oh, it's a complex story,
Right.
shaped by the ebb and flow of history.
Yeah.
One major factor was the expansion of those very languages you mentioned,
Okay.
Spanish and French,
Right.
both part of the Indo-European family that really swept across Europe. And as they grew, Basque was gradually pushed back.
Interesting.
Its speakers either assimilating or shifting to these more dominant tongues.
Well, it was like this gradual linguistic squeeze play happening over generations.
Yeah, squeeze play, I like that.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't just about languages naturally competing for speakers.
Right.
Political forces played a big role too.
Okay.
Like, for example, the Reconquista.
Mm-hmm.
The centuries-long struggle to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from Moorish rule.
Right.
That had a significant impact on Basque.
So with the dominance of Castilian Spanish after the Reconquista,
Exactly.
speaking Basque was increasingly marginalized.
Yeah. And then the Franco regime in the 20th century
Right.
took things even further.
Yeah, because under Franco's rule, Basque language and culture were actively suppressed.
Yes, absolutely.
Like children were punished for speaking Basque in schools.
It's true.
Wow. The impact of this period is just, it casts a long shadow.
It
A
does.
stark reminder of how language can be used as a tool of oppression.
Tool of oppression, but you also see how important language is as a symbol of identity.
It makes you wonder, like, what is it about language that makes it such a powerful symbol of who we are?
Well, and the Basque people never gave up on their language.
That's amazing.
What's inspiring is that despite this period of intense repression,
Yeah?
Basque not only survived, but it experienced a revival,
Really?
particularly in recent decades.
That's incredible. This resilience really speaks volumes about the Basque people's dedication to preserving their heritage.
It really does. They recognize that language is more than just words.
Yeah.
It's the lifeblood of a culture.
Yeah.
It carries its stories, traditions, and worldviews.
Right.
And so they fought to bring Basque back from the brink.
Wow.
They established Basque language schools. They created media in Basque. They even developed a standardized version of the language.
Okay, and that's called Euskara Batua, right?
Yes, Euskaraba Batua.
Okay, so I'm curious about this because it seems like every language has its dialects and regional variations. Was standardizing Basque about picking one dialect over the others?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of what makes Euskara Batua so fascinating.
Okay.
Basque has 5 main dialects,
Okay.
each with its own unique character and history.
Right.
Euskara Batua aimed to bridge those dialects,
Okay.
creating a common ground for communication while still respecting the richness of this linguistic diversity.
So it's more like building bridges between regions than imposing one way of speaking over another.
Exactly. Think of it as creating a shared language that allows speakers from different valleys and villages to understand each other while still preserving the unique flavor of their local dialect.
Yeah.
It was a monumental task,
I bet.
but it's been vital to Basque's resurgence.
Wow.
Today, Euskara Batua is used in education, media, and government, breathing new life into the language.
That's amazing. It's a testament to how proactive steps in community efforts can really revitalize the language.
For sure.
But we've talked a lot about the history and cultural significance of Basque. I'm curious to know what makes it so linguistically distinct.
Okay.
The materials mention something called ergativity.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty complex.
It might sound intimidating,
Yeah.
but it's actually a fascinating way of structuring sentences.
Okay.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
In many languages, the subject of a sentence is treated the same way grammatically, regardless of whether they're performing an action or receiving it.
Okay, so like the cat chased the mouse versus the cat was chased by the dog.
Yeah.
The cat is grammatically the subject in both.
You got it.
Okay.
But Basque takes a different approach.
Okay.
It uses something called an ergative case.
Okay.
This means the subject of a transitive verb, the one doing the action, is marked differently than the subject of an intransitive verb.
So it's like Basque is hardwired to emphasize the doer in a sentence in a way that other languages don't.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a fundamental difference in how Basque constructs meaning and highlights just how unique its grammatical structure truly is.
So interesting.
And then there's another feature we should touch upon,
Okay.
polypersonal agreement, which is...
Polypersonal agreement. Don't worry, you haven't scared me off yet. I'm ready for more Basque grammar adventures. What does that one entail?
Well, picture this. A verb that doesn't just agree with the subject of the sentence, but with a direct object and indirect object all at the same time. That's what's happening in Basque.
Wow. So instead of the verb just changing based on who's doing the action, it's like it's juggling multiple perspectives at once.
Precisely.
Wow.
Imagine saying, I give it to you, and having the verb reflect all 3 people involved, the I, the it, and the you.
Right.
Basque grammar is like a beautifully complex dance, making sure every element is in sync.
That's incredible. It sounds like quite a workout for your brain to learn Basque, but also incredibly rewarding to speak a language that precise.
It's definitely unique.
Speaking of Basque's influence, the research mentioned it might have left its mark on other languages in the region.
Right.
Even languages that seemed completely different, like on the surface.
Yeah, you're talking about the Basque substrate theory.
Right.
Which suggests that even though Basque territory shrank over time, it might have subtly influenced the languages that grew up around it.
Interesting.
Like Spanish and Gascon.
So like linguistic ghost stories.
It's a really fascinating puzzle that has scholars digging deep into the history of these languages.
So interesting. The materials mention something about the word for left potentially having Basque origins.
Yes, the Spanish word for left, izquierdo,
Right.
has some striking similarities to words for left in other languages spoken near the Basque country.
Okay.
And it's led linguists to speculate whether these words could share a common ancestor in the ancient Basque language.
Wow. So even as Basque territory shrunk, its linguistic DNA might be woven into the very fabric of its neighbors.
Exactly. It really highlights how these languages are constantly influencing and being influenced by each other.
Yeah, and leaving behind these fascinating linguistic echoes.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what other hidden connections are out there just waiting to be discovered.
Probably a lot.
Right. Okay, but enough about ancient history for a moment.
Yeah.
How's Basque doing today?
Yeah.
Is it still considered an endangered language?
Well, that's the good news. Basque is experiencing a resurgence, especially among younger generations.
That's great.
All those efforts to revitalize the language through education media and official recognition, they had a real impact.
That's fantastic. So the number of Basque speakers is growing.
It is.
That's fantastic to hear. It's proof that even in our globalized world, with all its linguistic pressures, it's possible to not only preserve a language, but help it thrive.
It's really inspiring.
It really is. Okay, before we wrap things up, I have to bring up one last thing from the research because it completely blew my mind.
Okay.
Aeromincella.
Yeah.
What in the world is that?
So Aeromincella is a testament to the wonder of language.
Okay.
It's spoken by some Roma communities in the Basque Country.
Okay.
And here's the fascinating part. It uses Romani vocabulary, but Basque grammar.
Wait, hold on. It's like a linguistic hybrid. How does something like that even happen?
It's a phenomenon called language contact.
Okay.
When two distinct linguistic groups have close interaction over a long time, their languages can start to blend in really unexpected ways.
Wow.
And in this case, the Roma community adopted the grammatical structure of Basque while still retaining their own unique vocabulary.
That's incredible. It's like a Basque grammar became the operating system for this Romani language.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Wow. Can you tell us more about how language contact works and what other examples exist?
Oh, that's a topic for another deep dive entirely.
You got me there. I guess we'll have to say that for another episode. But for our listeners, if this deep dive into the world of Basque has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to delve deeper into its mysteries. Explore the hypotheses about Basque's possible connections to other languages, or learn about the vibrant Basque culture that has kept this ancient tongue alive.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover.